thank you for all you do for the Lincoln community, and in particular, Lincoln students. When I see the dictionary project and I think about Elliot and I think about Everett, and I think about those of you that serve as teammates, and I think about those of you that are just involved trying to make Lincoln the great community that we are, it wouldn't happen without your dedication and commitment. It's why I've been a Rotarian my entire adult career, at least since I've been back in Nebraska, because I believe in the mission as you do as well. So thank you for all that you do and for putting people who need us the most at the forefront of your thinking. It's making a tremendous difference. And I do agree that students do take great pride in physical things that they can hold, that they can own, dictionaries or anything like that. And as digital as we're becoming, our libraries are still robust in terms of activity. So thank you for the great role you play on that, and we appreciate it very much. Wonderful job. We have an incredible relationship with the police department and the entire city of Lincoln, for that matter. The decision was made, working with a collective community group, that we were going to try to expand school resource officers into our middle schools. Well, if you watched school board meetings, you know that brought out crowds on both sides of the issue, from the standpoint of we need our schools to be safer, therefore additional SROs make sense. And then why would we bring more guns into school? That goes in the wrong direction. We've spent a lot of time creating this MOU with the city, and I'm very, very happy and very pleased that Mayor Beitler took a tremendous leadership role in helping this occur. And so we now have middle school SROs, and we have 6 additional SROs. They're being divided amongst our middle schools, and we think this is going to be a situation that's very, very good. Believe it or not, kids in Lincoln, despite what we do hear about, and we see data that nationally say that additional police presence leads to school-to-prison pipeline numbers increasing, the reality of it is that isn't true in Lincoln. Our students have great relationships with our SROs, and SROs really want to be working with students in school. So it's a program that works very, very well. We're very excited. Couldn't do it in Lincoln if we didn't have that level of cooperation with the mayor and city council. So thank you for your help and support on that. The other thing I would say that we have to do, because there is still some concern, what is the role of the SRO in a school? Is it to invoke punishment? Is it to make arrests because they have easier access to kids? Is it to go get the student out of the civics class because they won't take the gum out of their mouth and the principal's tried everything? The answer to those is no. The answer is that they are there to dissuade adverse behavior. They offer a level of additional protection. We have secured entrances now in most of our schools. Everybody has to have badge access to get in. We've really tightened down on the external security. But they're there in the event that something does occur, and things do occur. Kids will be kids, and the reality of it is they are not to be, their primary role is not to arrest kids in school. And we've told our principals, don't rely on the SROs to do the work that you've been hired to do, which is to modify behavior and or invoke discipline. So we feel really good. We're working on additional definitions on exactly the role and how are we going to evaluate the effectiveness of the school resource officers. Because post-Parkland, that was a very common conversation. And one of the things that we find in public education is that when there's something occurring around the country that sounds exciting or sounds good or sounds like something we ought to do, people jump on bandwagons, and we don't have a way to evaluate the effectiveness. And one of the things we take great pride in Lincoln is we want to evaluate all of our programs. So that's a little bit more on that. And so I think we're in great shape, and that's going to look wonderful. And hopefully your children and grandchildren are not complaining about additional SRO presence, but they're basically saying they have good relationships with them. So I want to talk about facility planning. I'm going to watch my time here. As a long-time Rotarian, I know what happens at 1 o'clock. So beginning next week, we have 99 people from the community and our staff that are going to be meeting with Dr. Standish is going to be coordinating that. Jennifer Brinkman, you can raise your hand. Jennifer's agreed to be one of our tri-chairs, along with Nick Cusick and Maribel Cruz, to really do what the Superintendent's Facility Advisory Council has done in the past, and that is to study all of the things that we've been looking at, knowing that we have limited resources and a lot more needs, and to help us carve a direction that we can all hopefully support and move forward on. And I have to tell you, that's going to be more challenging today than ever before because of tax environment, budgets, just essentially how much Lincoln has changed demographically just in the last decade or so. So this group, and thank you if you're on it, I know Andrew's on it, and I'm sure there's others that have agreed and accepted. Thank you for your participation in that. But here's where the challenge lies. I mentioned before that we have a 2,000 student high school seat challenge. We're 106% of capacity today. If you have somebody at Lincoln East, they're sending you text messages about how crowded the hallways are, right? Lincoln High, North Star, we had to change boundaries because we just couldn't accommodate all the kids that wanted to go to North Star. You go down to Southwest, Southeast is landlocked. They're at overcapacity. So it's nobody's arguing with the problem. But here's the issue. Do you build one? And if you do, where do you put it? Because if you believe that you should put schools where the kids are today, and you only have the ability to do one, you have to go north. And you have to go west. Cooser Elementary, I was reading some of the news articles. Why are you building out there in the fields? Nobody's going to be out there. Cooser's jammed. Same thing with Skull Middle School. You can look at Scott down in the south. You can look at Southwest. You can and the elementaries. The reality of it is, the farther out we build, what happens is that's where the community begins to grow. And right now, if you go up in that North Star area and you go to Air Park and you go to Arnold and Roper and you look at the middle schools that are out there, that's where the kids are. That's where the capacity is today. So if the community said we have one high school, then the big question that the Facility Advisory Council has to address is where do you go? Do you go where the kids are, north? Or if you look at the 2040, 2060 comp plan, where their kids are coming, which is going to be South Central and then Southeast. So one high school, and here's where I'm estimating numbers, and Liz will give you the exact numbers, except I don't think we have them yet. But if high school is about $90 million. So one high school, one decision, one location is going to be a very difficult challenge, or is this a time to become creative? If you think back to the last high school bond election, North Star, Southwest, carbon copies of each other. One north, one south. And if you read the articles, you know that it was about equity and parity and just making sure that both sides of the city were treated equally. And so you can see, if this was the SBAC group and we were to say to you, you've got one option only. Pick a location, 190 million, 2,000 student comprehensive high school. You could imagine right now how that vote might go. And so one of the things that we're hoping is that we have the ability to, going forward, sorry about that. Is it up on those screens? We have the ability going forward to perhaps think about this more creatively. One of the things that we have in our midst right now are choice option programs, whether it's arts and humanities. The zoo school is going to be expanded pretty dramatically here when the project with the zoo is completed. And then we have TCA, where enrollment went from 240 kids to about 540 kids this year, and projecting next year between 600 and 700 students, which, by the way, cybersecurity, who would have thought that would have attracted the numbers of kids? Criminal justice, I was in their classroom this morning. They're filled up immediately. Health sciences, holy smokes, there must be a tremendous demand for nurses and CNAs, and we all know why, because the boomer generation is beginning to age out. And so we're seeing numbers. We're seeing increases in advanced manufacturing. We're seeing numbers in robotics, things of that sort that are really beginning to attract kids. So is this an opportunity to be thinking maybe a little bit more creatively about that high school solution? And so we're looking forward to what that may represent. So we also have a need, and I will tell you that Scott Wieskamp and Liz Standish several months ago, about a month ago, unleashed what we call our 10-year facility plan. There's about 600 million and change that are needs that we have right now. A couple of middle schools, 2 or 3 elementary schools, and of course a 2,000 student high school solution. Not to mention what it takes to renovate through indoor air quality projects existing schools that are beginning to show age. So when you remodel your home, you know what it costs to do bathrooms and maintain plumbing and roofing and HVAC systems. And we take great pride in the fact that you can go to Holmes Elementary School, it's a really old elementary school, and you can walk inside and it looks pretty modern. And it's because of that investment. So again, if we have 600 plus million worth of needs, we have some tough decisions ahead of us, and we only are limited to whatever the Board of Education says we could go forward with to ask in terms of a bond. then tough decisions are going to have to be made. And they're going to have to be made with the idea that we're not going to be able to get to all those things that we need to get to. So I want to talk just a little bit more about choice options, and this will lead to where we definitely want to hear from you. The future of education in America is going to be personalized, individualized, customized, and centered on project-based and problem-based. And let me explain what that means. Kids today, argue with me if you'd like, kids today are way different than the kids were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, in terms of how they're learning, right? So we're beyond the lecture of the timeline of the American Civil War. What happened in 1860, 61, the major battles, how many were killed. I mean, we don't do that anymore because kids today have the ability with their Chromebooks and or their phones to be able to answer any question, when was the Battle of Gettysburg? So we know that it's really about why did the Civil War occur? What were the conditions in place in the 1850s and the 1860s that led to that kind of an event that really separated this country? And what might be some of those conditions today that may look like what was occurring back then? And so students today, they learn by being engaged and centered on problems. Well, all kids don't learn the same way at the same time. We know that, right? That's why our 7-year graduation rate is 91%, and our 4-year graduation rate is about 86.5 or 87%. It takes kids longer time to do that. So one of the things that we've done with technology being just a supporter of great instruction is really looking at how can we personalize that learning more. We see it at the Career Academy, we see it at the Zoo School, we see it at Arts and Humanities. How do we bring that to scale, kindergarten through 12th grade? That's going to be the work of the future. And how do we prepare kids for their future and not our past? And that's the challenge of American education going forward. Because while we have standards and skills that students have got to master, the reality of it is this world that we're preparing them for, 70% of the jobs that are going to be in 5 years or 10 years from now haven't even been invented yet. And so what are we preparing kids for? We have to find out what their interests are, we have to connect them to their interests, and we have to provide viable, engaging learning experiences for them. And for those of you with kids and grandkids still in school, I have to tell you, that's going to be exciting because we're going to be doing some really cool things. So what's on the drawboard? We've been kicking around doing some research on agriculture as a pathway. We've been looking at international business. We've been looking at dual language immersion programs. We've been looking at aviation. We're going to make an announcement tonight with a partnership with Duncan that's really exciting for some students at North Carolina High School. And we're going to continue to push those envelopes to try to find ways to connect kids to their learning so that when they graduate from Lincoln Public Schools, they will have options beyond, in addition to going to college or doing what they want to do, but being able to apply. If you go to TCA and you see the students that are getting hired on the spot at the Career Academy, it convinces us every single day that that's the future. Give kids opportunities within their interests, connect them to that, and then let them make their decisions going forward. So I'm going to stop there with 2 minutes to spare and to say thank you. And Dr. Standish and I would love feedback on things that you've read, things that you've heard. We'll stick around for some time afterwards. Thoughts maybe you have about the work that's coming up in the next couple of months. SVAC will be completed in August. Recommendation to me, to the board, and then we'll be going forward pretty aggressively from there. Yes, sir.
Dr. Joel, do we have a bond expiring soon?
Complicated question. The short answer is yes. But it's not as easy as we do a lot of refinancing to take advantage of interest rates and terms. So there is some capacity that will be there. We just don't know what that number is yet. But thank you.
I've been fortunate to raise 5 children. First 4 were separated by the 5th by 16 years or so. We just graduated the 5th 2 years ago this summer. She required a summer class. We had to take her to North Star from Southeast Lincoln. And we logged 1,200 miles, taking her to and from school. What's the thought in that plan?
I'm never going to give you an answer you're going to like. But I will say this. We're looking at 2 locations, one north and one south in the future. It's just that summer school, we don't get a lot of funding for summer school. So we're having to, the more we can centralize it, the better we can provide comprehensive academic courses. We're seeing more and more of our students, and maybe this is your 5th, that are trying to accelerate their learning as much as we used to see them trying to remediate their learning. And so that's under advisement. That's something we are thinking about in the future. It's not going to help you. Good point, though.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
We'll stick around.